Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome to another weekly episode where we look at book covers and talk about what makes them work and maybe a few ways to make them better. As usual, I am your humble host, MLS Weech. If you love book covers and you enjoy this, please give a like and subscribe. Click the bell notification. That does a lot to show your support and helps me know that people are interested in this kind of presentation, this kind of content. For now, we have a couple announcements to make because the book cover of the month poll, the overall poll, is over, and we get to name the winner for the entire month of July. And the MLS Weech 2021 book cover of the month of July is none other than A Desert Torn Asunder by Bradley P. Balow. And that is this cover right here. So this was actually a pretty tough month. It got more votes than most other months, and it was a pretty contested month with a whole bunch of really nice covers. So big congratulations to the designer of the cover. Big congratulations to Bradley, and I really can't wait to see what other covers come in. So the way this works is each week I look at a whole bunch of covers and I pick 7 that I think are pretty decent covers. And then I allow you guys to vote for your favorite in the link down below. At the end of 4 weeks, we got enough for a overall of the month contest. And then at the end of the year, you guys will be allowed to vote from the 12 covers that were selected throughout the cover for the overall book cover of the year. That's the concept. That's the idea that we're going to try out and see if it gains traction and see if people get interested. So that means we talked about the winner for the month of July. And now I get to name the winner for the month, the second week of August. And the winner for the second week of August is a book called Follow the Hummingbird by Elena Carter. And that is this cover right here. Honestly, I think this cover really stood out. It did stand out in a bunch of really strong covers. And the color of this one and the detail of this cover really shined. And I'm very happy that it won. Congratulations to the designer and Miss Carter as well. And that is the winner for last week of August. And that means it's time to talk about the 7 covers we've selected for discussion this week. The first cover is a book by Andy Pelequin. It is Assassin, part of the Darkblade saga. And this is what I call a standard portrait cover. It's unique in that the eyes are hidden in shadow. Typically, people use eyes to connect with the viewer. So when you hide the eyes, it increases the creepiness factor. So when you see a figure holding some pretty wicked looking knives and hidden eyes, a little splash of color with the ruby at the end of one of the blades, you're really doing a lot to increase the overall tone of a cover. I do like that this book also has a pretty interesting background. It's not distracting. It's not obstructing the view of the figure. So it might not be the absolute most amazing cover, but these elements kind of tie together. Notice the pull quote. It's very common to have some sort of cover blurb on a book to help readers make that decision on whether they want to pick it up and try the first page or give it a click and look at more of the details. And so I don't necessarily mind that it's there. It's a little weird that it covers part of the subject. In this case, I would have actually put it up in the top left just to have it somewhere that is visible. Top left is a pretty prominent position from a design point. Usually the eyes do what they do when they want to read, so things go from left to right, top to bottom. But it's a better real estate, and it's not competing with the actual figures. So that's something that I wasn't the happiest with. The other thing is it's always hard to tell like what the name of a book is against what the name of the series is. From what I can infer, the name of the book is Assassin and the name of the series is Darkblade. but that might be reversed. And the reason why it's hard to tell is because those font sizes definitely compete with one another. And that's a risk when you're trying to sell something. Then you try to recommend it to somebody like, oh yeah, I read this book Assassin, or I read this book Darkblade. People are going to search those terms now. When you're Andy Peliquin, you're going to be okay. People are going to find your book. But the decision to make this series a single word and not say like the Darkblade series or the Darkblade sequence or saga, whatever you want to do, it just makes it a little more challenging to know what you're talking about. That doesn't take away from the art of this cover, and it's just food for thought for any designers who might be out there. The next cover we're going to talk about is The King of Fairy, and that's by A.J. Lancaster, I believe. A.J. Lancaster, that's correct. And so this has beautiful color, intricate detail. A number of the covers we're looking at today are what I call text driven, which is actually rare. It's not something you see these days. So this particular choice of fonts is artistic. It's very script-like in its design, and that matches with the tone. And I also like that it goes along with the border that the illustrator created on the sides. I like the addition of the little castle or the little temple that's underneath. It adds a little bit of flavor that creates a sequence where you have visual element, text-driven visual element. So there's something for everyone in this cover. And then the use of the tone of red, the value of this red, is really pleasing without being overpowering or annoying to the eye. So those are good qualities and a cover that's not too bad. The next cover we're going to talk about is The Empire's Ruin by Brian Staveley. This particular cover has great energy. I love the dynamic action pose of the figure. Again, I'm starting to kind of see this. I've seen it. I saw it a few times in previous weeks, and I wonder if we're noticing a new trend in covers. So stay tuned as we look at other covers throughout the week, because what's starting to happen is what is currently the norm is you have great detail in the face. The eyes are visible. Usually the faces are more dominant. There's something to connect the viewer. And now I'm starting to see more and more covers where the eyes are obscured, the face doesn't have a lot of detail, or some combination of all of those things. And this cover does the same thing. This cover is someone with some wicked looking swords about to do some really awesome things. It's a great moment of what's called peak action. There's a lot of tension that's created when you see someone leaning forward, charging in a direction. So, you know, I find myself continually looking back at the cover to see if he actually moved or fell over. That kind of tension does great things from a compositional standpoint. I absolutely love how the title text is designed around that figure. I think that is a beautiful touch. I'm actually a huge fan of this cover in particular. I've never read Brian Staveley's work before, but this is the kind of cover that makes me want to get around to reading some of his work. If you've read the book, let me know what you think in the comments down below. See if you can motivate me to get through my TBR a little more quickly than I do these days. So that's that cover. Cover number 4 we're going to talk about is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. And this book cover is stunning. And it stands out because of its cover, because of its color, and because of its style. It's a very unique style. It looks kind of like the old wall art cave paintings or something you might see in some of the older Asian art, which obviously is something that the authors coming from, but the use of these colors together. And there's still the dominant element of this is indeed the text. The title is almost as large as the whole cover is itself. You got that big bold sun with that bright yellow sky and that little army field. All of those little details just work together so beautifully. And I cannot speak enough about how powerful it is to have that spectrum of color ranging from yellow to that. It might be green. The colorblind guy struggles with that sometimes. It might also be black, but just how it ranges from there. And then you have those figures on the field below. It just comes together so, so nicely. If I could just give this designer a giant high five, I would do that. And I love everything about what this cover does, and I love everything about what this cover implies to me as a story in tone and in concept. Like I said about the last cover, where the last one would be like, you know what, I really need to get around reading one of his books. This one makes me want to read this book. I'm not, my TBR is big enough for the moment. Once I get that whittled down a little bit more, I can start looking for new stuff. But there are always authors who I'm going to read before other people. But if I come across this at a time when I have an Audible code I don't know what to do with, I would absolutely jump at this one. So big props to this one. I honestly wouldn't change a thing about it. The fifth cover we're going to look at is Deadlands, another text-driven cover. I always accidentally run into a theme, even though I'm never purposefully thinking about it. And the theme for this week is text-based design. So I love how they took the letters and used it to interweave the smoke pattern that's going around these covers. It's not overly complex, and it's not tremendously interesting. The skulls add a little bit of a touch. But at the end of the day, you have this text that draws you in. It doesn't give me a whole lot of sense of what the story's like. It does give me a sense of tone. So I think author Stacey Marie Brown really came up, or the designer for this cover really came up with a great text-based design that gets to theme, but I kind of knock it a little because all I really have to go with are some smoke patterns, the text itself, and then the detail of the skull. So it's a bit of a hard read when you're like looking at covers and you're shopping and you're thinking to yourself, well, what's this book about? What would I like to read? Some book covers want you to wonder that and pick it up. I personally don't pick up a book if I don't have some sense of what it's about through the cover. Some people look at the cover and see something like this and go, I wonder what that's like. It's a risk that you take, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Monochromatic is interesting. I wonder if the designer tried any kind of splash of color just to bring the eye in better, especially when I'm scrolling through. I almost miss this cover because there isn't a lot to trap the eye. I still like the cool idea with the patterns in the smoke, and I like the detail in the skull. So it's still a solid cover, but those are some things that really made it kind of a risky cover as well. Cover number 6 for the week is A Court of Honey and Ash by Shannon Meyer and Kelly St. Clair. I know one of those authors is more known for some of the steamy romance stuff. That's not really my flavor, ice cream, but it's still a pretty nice text-based cover. I like the gradient. So you have bright yellow, and it shifts generally and slowly, smoothly is a better term, to that ashy brown color that does a great job of leading the eye to the authors. I like the style of the text. It's easily read, partially because of how big it is. Again, it only gives me a little kind of indication of what it is. It speaks more to tone than it does to content. So a guy like me is probably not super likely to read this, but it doesn't take away from how well the cover was designed in a sense of color, in a sense of text, in a sense of placement and hierarchy. These are all really good executions that, don't get me too excited, but it doesn't mean that they're not solid, and it doesn't draw attention. It absolutely captured my eye. So that is what stands out about that cover. Last one we're going to talk about is The Second Blind Son by Amy Harmon. This is cool because it incorporates the image with the text. The sloop of the arrow becomes the eye in the word blind. It's a very common tool, but it's used a lot for a reason. It helps build unity in a text design, and unity is a big important thing when you're talking about design. It does speak to tone, it does speak to content, because those figures look to be something like the crop circle someone might design in. So, you know, I would hope that this is some kind of alien visitation or alien attack story. And then the title text provides a little bit more data. I do think that what it looks to me like is the designer was trying very hard to not compete. But with the size of this font and the way you're arranging things, I don't know how you do that. Maybe you move the word the. Um, I think the text is just a little too far apart for me personally. I think that it needs to get tightened up so it's a more unified area, or each line. The real issue is this thing called leading. So back in the old days when you did print, you would lay out your text in a line, and then you'd take an actual piece of lead and you would plop it down to make sure the spacing from one line to the next is equal. So that's why these days you have this thing called leading in all of your Word documents. The leading between each set of letters is so enormous. It's actually hard to read it as one unit. The second line, sun. If you bring those together, grouping things together makes them feel like they belong together more. And so that's kind of a knock on it. You do this one thing to make the unity of the project better, but then you have the leading at a pretty ridiculous width, which hurts the unity. And you could have had both based on how you design it. Amy Harmon is a New York Times bestselling author, so she's probably going to be fine. But this isn't about the authors as much as it's about the covers and the design tools they use to make those covers work. When you're a best-selling author, at that point in time, you can begin selling your own name, and that in and of itself is going to do a lot of the marketing for you. I just wish that they brought that text more closely together. So that's the seventh cover. You have 7 to choose from, and I hope that you will consider going down into the link below and selecting the one that is your favorite, because the more people who vote, the more these covers get recognition, the more legitimized the effort is. And it's not an effort to legitimize me, it's an effort to give book covers a way to be rewarded. At least that's my vision for it. So I hope you'll support me in it. I hope you'll vote for your favorite. And I hope that you have a blessed day. God be with you, and I'll talk to you later.